and came back, opened the door, and Papa opened the door and saw her with the blood here. Oh, viejito, viejito, something happened, but nothing to worry about. And
Concerned about
she's saying,
him. Concerned
yeah,
about him.
concerned about him. And then he says, oh no, I'm going to faint. This is too much. I have to sit down. And here I am in a different place of the house with a beautiful sofa, sitting in the wonderful sofa of grandma,
Talking about grandma and grandpa.
thinking about them.
Nice. Well, we'll say welcome or welcome back to our viewers, our audience.
Welcome back. They're
Welcome
seeing us.
back. So today we have a very interesting topic. We've been talking about a lot of things related to aging, and naturally, as we age, our parents age, and our relationship with our parents changes over time. Today's focus will be our unique experiences with that process. So that is the plan for today. Sound good?
Sounds
Very
excellent.
good.
All right. All right. Well, first, let me give some information on what has been said or observed about this natural progression of our changing relationship with our parents as we age. So one model says there's 5 main stages that we go through as we go from childhood onward and how our relationship shifts with our parents. First is childhood, right, where we're very dependent on our parents for most things. Our teen years, where we may go through some turmoil because we're trying to seek independence, but we're still dependent on our parents. So this can be a very more challenging phase, I would say, in our relationship with our parents. Then there is our late 20s, early 30s, which is considered, the real beginning of adulthood and us trying to figure out things for ourselves. There may even be some reflections on what childhood and our years were like, and sometimes that can come with mixed feelings towards parents. Then there's midlife, where we maybe expand our families. So now we're parents ourselves, and this can be the period where we lean on our parents in some ways for advice. Sometimes we don't want that advice, but it definitely shifts the relationship we have with our parents because now we have a little more empathy for their role as parents. And then old age, which we start to see our parents transition into the role that they once had with us, now we have with them, which is where we might be doing more caretaking. And of course, that is its own unique phase that we'll be talking a bit about today. Going through the stages is interesting, right? Because it's a period where, like I said, early on, we depend on them. Then at some point, we feel more like equals. And then at the end, it feels like a flip of where we started. And a lot of how we navigate the changes, for some people, it feels abrupt when you start realizing, oh, wow, things have flipped. For others, it feels like a natural progression. A lot of that depends on our attachment to our parents. There are 4 main attachment styles. There is anxious, ambivalent, anxious, avoidant, disorganized, and secure. And secure is the ideal attachment you have with your parents, where you always have a sense that your parents are there, but they also respect that degree of independence you have. And so even if you veer a little bit away, as we naturally do as we become our own person, we know our parents are always there. And that is sort of the theme as we age together, that is a strong connection with your parents. And so with all of that in mind, I want to start learning about your experiences, and I'll share my own, starting with the question of what are 3 key things you learned as your parents aged and you saw your relationship change, and even as you started taking care of them. And I will start with Aunt Lauda.
Okay, first of all, I'm sitting in the beautiful sofa that belonged to grandma. And I still love it anyways.
Loved it. Loved
Very,
it.
very nice. Well, 3 things that I will say that I have learned taking care of my mom. Actually, it was more my mom than my dad because I was younger and they still, but Papa left 20 years ago. But I think it's incredible when you realize, like you just said, that your parents were the pillar of your life, that you depend on them. And all of a sudden, the roles changed. The first thing that you learn is to respect her. When she moved to my house with me, she was independent. It still was. So that's very important to reflect on, because sometimes it's like, I need to take care of my mom, right? But when she's independent, she's still a person, that can do things and make decisions. And over the years, of course, you start seeing that she's getting weaker or needs more assistance, no? When that happens and when they accept it, that's when you can, be with them and ask them all the time. I think it's very important to give them that space and ask them, do you need my help? Or, is there something else I can do, especially when they get sick or something happens there, right? But do not forget that they are, individuals that still have their own needs. And always treat them with respect and love, right? Sometimes living with a person 24/7 is very tough, but you learn because your parents are your parents forever. So, mother, sometimes you ask her, what do you want to do? But, or you make decisions for her. And that's really tricky there because you cannot overpass that limit, I would say.
Great points. Mom, how about for you?
Well, first of all, true that Tia Laura took care of grandma 100%. And we were blessed, we can say
Wait a minute. You did take care of her as well. 3 months of the
when I
year.
would come and
Yes.
visit. When I
Yes.
would
3
come.
months of the year and you stay. That's all you did. You didn't go any tourist places.
No, I would stay with her. That's right. And I'm happy for that.
You have to talk about that.
Be honest.
Be honest.
Yes.
Be honest. But we were blessed that she lived to 100 and she really began to fail. I don't know, let's see what Tia Laura says, but I think the last couple of years maybe.
Oh, when she was 98,
yeah.
probably weaker. Yeah.
Then she barely, she moved. Well, she was not going out for the last few years. She really didn't want to go out, but she still. And one of the things is her mind. Her mind was aware to the last minute
Yes.
of her life, and that is a blessing. Physically, of course, is when you begin to deteriorate. I mean, to believe until 100 more or less, well, that's a blessing. And for me, for example, since I left home, I would see them grow. And the first key I would say is how graciously, when they were both alive, yeah, Papa has been dead for over 20 years, but how graciously they grew old. And of course, Grandma taking a little bit more care of him. But they had a social life well into the 80s, their late 80s, until Papa passed away, and then Mama continued with her groups. So they had a very active social life all the time. Then also the way they had a faith, because they went through difficult times, like all of us, very difficult times. For example, they lost their house. They lost many things, material things. And then Mama had cancer and I was away. So Tia Laura was mostly with them. They passed all of that because of their faith, And another thing was that they took care of themselves. They realized and accepted. I remember, Papa, that they were growing old. There were certain things that they could not do, and they kind of adapted to it. And Papa it was so funny because when I would visit, he would have a little booklet, perfectly organized, the medicines he had to do, the hour he had to take a nap. That was very funny. But yeah, probably that's the key things. The way they grew older.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I want to share a quick story, or maybe Aunt Lauda, you can share the story because I think you were there when Grandpa fell one day in the apartments that you were in, and he came to the house, and I think Grandma opened the door.
What's the other way around?
That's correct. Tell the
Was
story.
the other way around. Yes, you have to, yeah, correct that. Yeah.
Te-
Yeah, grandma always went to mass every morning. So they lived in a building, a store of four floors, and they lived together in this apartment. And she went down to the church close by. And Papa was so, like Anna says, very particular. I would say selfish. My Papa. Anyways, so Mama going to the church felt, and she opened her eyes up here, all the way up here. She did had a scar. Anyway, she came back, of course, with I think she took a Kleenex or whatever, and came back. See, this is how positive she was. And came back, opened the door, and Papa opened the door and saw her with the blood here. Oh, viejito, viejito, something happened, but nothing to worry about. And
Concerned about
she's,
him. Concerned
yeah,
about him.
concerned about him. And then he says, "Oh no, I'm going to faint. This is too much. I have to sit down." Instead of offering a water or something to grandma, Mama said, "Oh, let me give you a tea." No, 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 relax. Don't be like that. Until my brother showed up and took them to surgery, to a hospital, because it was but it was bloody. My papa started falling, falling,
Painting.
But that's a
fainting.
great, just I think, small version of how much they relied on each other, but also how much she took care of him. And also
Ooh.
his unique character, I think, but really just how she was so much more concerned about him and that kind of thing. I love that story.
Yes.
I think for me, the three things I've learned, so for sure, I think growing into adulthood, I did a lot of reflection on my youth, my teen years, and we had a very hard family life. We've talked about that, and I think we've talked about my anger. And I think in my teen years, I was very parentified also. So I think I had a lot of anger and resentment that unfortunately I targeted a lot to mom. And I think part of that was, why are we in this family system? Why don't you make a different decision? In that time, divorce was certainly much more normalized than it was probably decades prior. But with the religious foundation that we had, of course, it was still something that was not ideal. So I think when I reflected back, I regretted a lot of the misdirected frustrations and the bossiness I think that I had. And the graciousness that my mom had in managing that, because I think she balanced being the parent, but also like, I understand where you're coming from. And then as we became equals, and I think that's where a lot of that surfaced, I think it was more appreciation for the tough decisions that she made, realizing that she was being strategic in her decision making. Ultimately, she just wanted to take care of the family, make sure we were in a good place. And then got to see the other side of her as a person, which is, all the great qualities that mom has, which is she's funny, she's very smart, she's very cultured. She's a little self-deprecating, which is, I think, the area she needs to work on. She needs to give herself more credit, I think. Which I think has been the great thing of watching her in her own community and her own friends, because I think she has a very strong position in her group of friends. And that's why they love her, right? And then now I think moving into the later phases, I think certainly after some medical scares, it's more about really valuing the time that we have now, right? Because you start to realize more about mortality and the limited time we really have. And in my youth, certainly being more school and work focused, we didn't do much. And then it wasn't really till like adulthood years on that we started really focusing on traveling and doing fun things together and trying to find even small ways to have time together. And I think that's what's really important now. And like you say, Aunt Lauda, it's the balance of post some of the medical scares, the balance of not being intrusive and trying to trust that mom is doing what she needs to do to take care of herself. But then also,
That's a hard one for you.
that's a hard one. And
Well, yeah.
trying to
It's hard.
partner with her, right? Give her some independence, but also ask the right questions and try to offer solutions or at least options when some trickier decisions have to be made. So and I think really learning from the two of you in terms of what you did with grandma and grandpa has been a big help in trying to figure some of those things out.
Good.
Yeah, yeah. So as your relationship changed with your parents, what did you learn about them that maybe changed how you had been seeing them prior to some of the transition to, being more equals and seeing them as people? I'll start with Aunt Lauda.
I learned a lot. Well, she left. She used to live with me. She left with us for about 15 or 18 years. So we share a lot. I saw her from one stage to another. Anna did too, because she came and stayed 3 months with her, and it was the same thing. But what you really learn is the way she accepted that she was already old, that she was not independent anymore. The roles have changed, that she need to ask for more things. And she never wanted to be a bother. Never. She actually wrote it down and said, I ask you, God, not to be a bother for those who take care of me. When I read that after she left, I was like, oh my God, because she repeated to me, I don't want to be a bother. No, 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 don't worry about me, things like that. So what I really I learned from her is, being first of all, to accept. She accepted when she was here. We had a long talk one time, and definitely, because of my work, I had some schedule, and so no, things changed, but we talk about it. And she said, "You're totally right. As long as I'm here without bothering you, whatever you want me to do, I will do it." So she was really flexible, very flexible on that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Very true, because I see older people, not so much the friends I have, they're younger than me, the closest friends here, but older people probably close to my age, that they want to do things that they have to accept they should not do, because there's going to be a consequence.
a risk.
If you start
Mhm.
jumping here, getting on top of ladders and things like that, when your kids tell you be careful, one has to think also of the kids. And I remember Mama respected that, because I know some ladies that want to be in their 50s, and they're not in their 50s anymore.
Yeah,
That's
because
it.
you feel strong, no? Like me, I'm 64,
Mhm.
and I go to the gym, and sometimes I go, I'm strong. Nothing, and I feel like doing more exercise or going to the dance class. And Mama is right. Your mom is right. Anna knows, because sometimes you're dancing like crazy and whatnot, but then next day it hurts everything, things that I've never heard before.
You can barely move.
Yes, you can barely move. So, yes, that's important
Yeah.
to accept it and realize that things are different.
Yes.
Yeah. And to modify. And I think just like we're talking about how these relationships change over time, sometimes it feels sudden, like all of a sudden you realize, oh yeah, because we see them from certain eyes and they see themselves from certain eyes, like we see ourselves from certain eyes, right? In our minds, we may think we're teenagers when we start doing things, but our bodies change, and our body will show us that wasn't such a great idea. And so I think it is just as much a change, an introspective process for ourselves as it is for our parents. And I think once they get to that realization that they are in that later phase, they have those reflections. I don't want to be a burden. And culturally for us, and I think in some other cultures for sure, there is a feeling that we take care of our own. It's very unusual to say when my parent reaches a certain age, they're going into a place where they'll take care of them, right? It is more common for us to say we take care of our own because we want them to have the comforts of home. And
Exactly.
also, it's our way to give back to our parents that for all the years they took care of us. And so, and I think
Exactly.
that's kind of been my reflection as I've seen you and me, Mom, have been going through this change, this process of our relationship transforming over time. I think it's definitely given me more of a sense of who you are as a person, and respect is a big part of that, and the willingness to give back I think is a piece of that too, because it's like all the years that you sacrificed and took care, right? It's just a natural progression, but I have to do it with balance because I'm very much a action-oriented person who wants to do, but I don't want to overstep. You're still very independent. You still generally make good choices. And so I think only when I see little missteps do I feel like I need to step in there and say, wait a second, can I talk to your doctor? But it's definitely given a sense of that, of like wanting to give back and also give you your space, you know.
And I've got to learn, growing old, we should, all people growing old, be honest with the kids because you don't want to be a burden. Then you want to kind of work out things that is not good. For example, I say, well, I have to get on this diet and get something to measure my sugar. And Joanna has to say, why? Well, I had my sugar a little bit high, and you don't have to try to find out like an inquiry. I should say, this is the result, and because you don't want to worry, it could be worse.
Yeah, I remember that time that your mama couldn't talk to you honestly, like because you were going to worry and then you're going to step up and say, but, like grandma, I would say, you have the tendency not to worry people. And especially Joanna, for in your case, Anna. I mean, it's like, but now I can see it's different, which is great.
Yeah.
It's great
I
because
keep
you
her
have
updated.
learned it.
Yes. It's an agreement. You keep me
Exactly.
informed. So we can figure out solutions together.
Exactly. It's an agreement. You don't have to think that she's going to get mad or she's going to tell me something, or, like we used to think with their parents, right? If we ask for a
And now it's
permission,
the other way. Yeah.
I better lie. I'm not going to tell her that I'm going to go to a party, It's
And I think
exactly
that's
the
one of the
same.
things that being old kind of would be, I don't know exactly the correct word, but you don't want to lose that independence. How come I cannot do this that I could do 20 years ago? Well, you can't, in precisely because you respect your children, your family, you have to be honest and adapt. And the time will come that I will have to move to something smaller, closer, and so on to the kids. And you have to accept it. Otherwise, that's why we have so many even physical accidents that could be avoided.
Right. That's right. So just as we learn some surprising things about our parents along the way, naturally, I think we learn something about ourselves. So I want to see for you two, what did you learn about yourselves as your relationships with your parents transformed? And we'll start with Aunt Lauda.
Wow. I learned that I could be patient, that I could give love, that I could think about somebody else before me, because I did was, in the past I was selfish and everything go around me. But the most important thing is that I needed, that I needed to be patient, and I need to treat my mother with respect, just and get more sensitive to anything that she needed, because during the night, for instance, that I gave her a bell. I said, if you feel bad or something, please just go with the bell and I'll be right here, And she never did. Well, at the end, of course, but I was very sensitive to, to that she has to be okay. So yeah, I think I put myself in second position.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have to accept that, taking care of her, especially the last couple of years, it was not just that you had her at home. You would help her, take a shower. You would cut her hair. You would fix her hair beautiful. All those little details, not just she's sitting, praying or reading or watching TV. You were really there for her, and it's hard. Of course, it's hard because, like you say, you're working. You have your own, pendings and frustrations and concerns. And that's true when they say that you turn practically into a child It's the other way around.
Well, but that's until she was 95. So
Oh yeah,
you're not even there. No,
Mm,
oh yeah,
no.
she did
That's
good, and I'm
actually,
sure that
and that's
she
why I appreciate, I feel blessed because my mother that lived with me, I really didn't notice that big change for only the last 3 years or 2 years. So,
yeah.
yeah.
so really, it was really nice and smooth because, like Anna says, she was always aware.
Yeah.
Her mental, very much
Is
aware,
very sharp. And I
very.
very
would
blessed.
imagine too that gave you an opportunity as you started moving in, past midlife onward to also learn from her, right? And I don't know if she did it outwardly or she waited until you asked questions for advice, but I'm sure she was able to guide you as you went through some of those changes yourself.
A lot, especially when I got sick. I felt, wonderful that she was here, and I needed to tell her the truth, right? Because it was something really important. And I again, I didn't want to hide that. That was a very, you know, important or big
Mhm.
information, and I didn't want to aggress, that she will feel bad, but I had to do it.
Mhm.
And I'm telling you, the way she took it, the way she told me, the words she said, oh my goodness, it was, the most important thing for me to go over these critical times.
Mhm. And I would say before I turn it over to mom, that's the thing I learned about myself too, because I think intellectually I anticipated and just, through my profession, expected that my mom would depend more on me as she aged. But there are moments when you go through your own trials and tribulations that you realize, like, I need my mommy, like
Hmm.
you realize that you never lose that sense completely of like, you
Exactly.
also get something from your parents.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
How about for you, mom?
Well, what I learned was just like the Laura said, you learn to be more honest as you grow old. You know, I appreciate to have followed with the kind of faith they both had. Mama, of course, more active, because that makes you see things in a different way. They had this strong feeling of spirituality, spiritual strength that I took for granted. I didn't realize until after, and now I learned by myself. And one thing very interesting was that exactly after Mama passed away, Grandma, Tia Laura found these letters that when our parents met, and how they grew through their letters, their correspondence, how they two people falling in love, sharing
Yes,
ideas, sharing feelings, making plans. And we
yes.
would see them as Mama and Papa, and out of the blue you have these lovely two young people.
Yeah.
And that was a surprise that we learned so many things from them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's natural, right? Again, sometimes the change feels abrupt, sometimes it feels more gradual, and natural. But I think there's always this barrier that we keep out of respect for our parents that we don't dig too deep into their private lives. But it's for some that in mid and later life you start to hear those stories. And I think that's such a critical piece of as you have the opportunity to have those kind of conversations is to listen to their stories, because again, once they're gone, you don't get that. And I think it's as much for them as you, because I think there's a part of them that wants eventually for you to know a little bit of their history and how they, came to be and how they were. And I wanna wrap up by extending that piece of how can people, as they go through these transformations, these change relationships with their parents, do it in a way that helps ultimately their relationship grow. And one is that, like, being open to being more of a friend, but also just listening to the stories, asking for the stories even. And we've said a lot of this. Set healthy boundaries, but also learn to partner with your parent. I think there's a natural inclination to want to take care of them as you start to worry about their aging process, but really collaborating with them. And that's a piece of the respect too, is like you both have said, still being independent. You want to respond to that, let them make their choices up to a point. I mean, we know there are some parents who face much tougher medical changes that might influence their ability to make those decisions. And that's a hard path to go down. But when it does, then that might be more of you make some decisions for them. But you ultimately want them to be set up for success. And we talked recently about if you start to gradually devote some time to that relationship and invest in it and start that partnering process, checking in with them, how their life is going beyond just medical stuff, but how is their social life, how active are they? Are they doing positive things for themselves, right? To start connecting with them. Then when you have to move into the tougher conversations, then you've already built in a way that you're talking to each other that helps those conversations. It's much harder when you're completely disconnected and then you jump in and start making decisions for them. It's tough on the parent who's like, all of a sudden you're coming into my life and disrupting my life, versus if, you're a part of my life and you understand holistically, you understand what my world is, and I can see that you're just trying to help me. And for some people, I know not everyone had as great a relationship as we did with our parents. I do with my mom. And sometimes you have to set firmer boundaries, and if you've chosen to stay connected to people that were not as positive to you, sometimes you have to be a little bit more firm with boundaries and structure time together for your own protection. But hopefully that's more of the minority than for most people. Yeah. So those are the tips we have. I don't know if you would add any tips.
Do not forget to thank them.
Mm.
Thank them because of the most important thing, that they gave you the life.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
And I didn't do much of thanking her except for my acts. But at the end, when she was really struggling the last weeks, I thank them every day. I thank her.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she knew. I mean, one knows. And it's difficult because, we were six. I'm the oldest daughter, Tia Laura the youngest, and four nice boys in between. And sometimes mama would feel divided. At the end, not that they didn't love her their own way, but Tia Laura was the one that, took over. And she knew and she appreciated. One knows, and try to be as easy as possible as we grow old.
Mm-hmm.
To our kids. And for whoever is old and they're by themselves, either because they don't have children or they really don't pay much attention, but just have faith and enjoy life. I know that the sad thing is if you are very sick and it's an illness that you go hospital treatments or you begin to forget things and things like that. I know it's difficult on the kids, but being patient, I guess, as we grow old. Our parents were, well, mama more than anything. So that was a nice, beautiful example to set.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure.
We appreciate our children too.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd be curious what other people's experiences have been, if this resonates with them, if they feel like it was a gradual change for them or more abrupt, and what kind of tips they would share with other people to help them navigate that transition over time that happens between us and our parents. If people like this, I hope they hit like. If they're interested in similar topics, hit the subscribe, because we talk a lot about these sorts of things, right? The natural process of aging, relationship building, navigating mental health along the way. With that, we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. My mom,
Ana,
my tia,
Laura,
I'm Joanna, and we want to remind you, whether it's good, bad, or funny,
leave it
live
live
it
it
up.
up.